All right, Subpart D, track structure, 213-101. The subpart prescribes minimum requirements of the ballast, cross-ties, tracks, assembly, fittings, and the physical condition of the rails. 213-103, the ballast in general, unless otherwise strictly supported, all structure tracks should be supported with material which 103A transmits the distributed load of the track and railroad rolling equipment to the subgrade. 103B, the restraint of the track laterally, longitudinally, vertically under the dynamic loads imposed with the railroad rolling and equipment, the thermal stress imposed on the rails. Guns ballast may constitute the crushed slag, crushed stones, carrying gravel, pit run, gravel, chat, cinders, scoria, permeous, sand, mine waste, other native material is an integral part of the track structure. Ballast regarded the material most satisfy the requirements of track safety standards. 103C, the product provided adequate drainage of the track. 103D, the maintain proper the track across the level surface alignment. Guidance inspectors should consider the overall condition of the track to be citing the foul ballast. Because of the ballast conditions can be subjective in nature, the inspector should also look for the other indicators such as geometry condition. For example, foul ballast violation might be appropriate if the track has been poor drainage. There is geometry conditions. The term geometry condition uses here elsewhere in the manual means the track surface gauge alignment irregularity that does not exceed the allowable threshold for designated track class. It exists to reduce the non-existent capability of one or more of the track structural components to hold the track as if in preferred and geometrical position. Statute 213-109, cross ties. 109A, cross ties should be made of material which they can be securely fastened. 109B, each 39-foot segment of the track shall have one sufficient number of the cross ties with a combination provided with effective support that will, 1. Hold the gauge limited to prescribed in statute 213-53B. 2. Maintain surface limited prescribed in statute 213-63. 3. Maintain alignment with the limits prescribed in 213-55. Minimum number of the type of the cross ties specified in paragraph C and D of this section of Act is distributed with the support of the entire segment. And 3. At least one cross tie type specified in paragraph C and D of the section that is located with the joint location specified in paragraph F of this section. The track safety standards determines the adequacy of the cross ties supported with included the functional requirements of maintaining the track geometry with the limits specified in subpart C. The failure of the cross ties to meet all three above the criteria can constitute the deviation from the track safety standards. Effective distribution has not been defined but must be implemented for the inspector as in synonymous, equally spaced language intended to address the situation where all non-defective ties exist in a group of short area of a 30-foot 9 segment in the track question. Evidence that cross ties are not effectively distributed includes primarily indicates the actual deviation of geometry conditions. No criterion exists for the maximal distance between the non-defective ties, and this measurement shall not be used to describe a tie defect. In such a description, appropriately should be determined the number of consecutive defects and ties in the group. When citing the defects of statute code 213-109-03, the cross tie is not effectively distributed to the support of 39-degree foot segmented track, the inspector must show the evidence of one or more of the geometry conditions decided with the 213-109B1. Several factors may be documented in the fact that this is being cited. The factors include, but are not limited to, geometry conditions, class of the curvature, class of track, the curvature of the track, designation of the rail, weight of the condition of other components of the track. When determining compliance with the section, the inspector must determine the cross ties meet the requirements of effectiveness as defined and above them to make the geometry measurement to verify each of the 39-foot segments. A sufficient number of the defective ties to maintain with the geometry the required number of the non-defective ties of the track class is described in paragraph D, and the proper placement of the non-defective ties are prescribed in paragraph D and in the position required in paragraph F to support the joints. The majority of the cross ties throughout the nation are made of wood. However, there are varieties of alternate design cross ties made of materials such as composite steels and concrete. These type of cross ties are becoming more commonly throughout the industry because they increase the use of the alternate design cross ties and the associated resilient type of the rail fasteners. Inspectors should be more rigorously considered a rail cross tie interface. Also, see the statute 213-127 rail fastening. 109C, each of the 39-foot segment of the class 1 track shall have 5 cross ties, clean class track. Class 2, 3, and shall have 8 cross ties. Class 4 and 5 shall have 12 cross ties which are not broken, thorough, or split, otherwise impaired. With the extent cross ties will also ballast to work through, will not hold spikes or rail fasteners. which are not so deteriorated that the tie plates or the base of the rail can move laterally more than a half an inch relatively to the cross ties. 4. Cut the tie plate through more than 40% of the tie's thickness. The guidance, paragraph C above, the superseded with the D with ineffective on the support September 21st, 2000. 109D. Each of the 39-foot segments shall have a minimum number of ties, type of ties as indicated in the following type. Class 1 has a tangent of 2 degrees or greater than 2 degrees, 5 ties, turnouts, curvatures over 2 degrees, 6 ties. 2. Class of track less than 2 degrees, 8 ties, 9 ties, turnouts, curved to track over the 2 degrees. Through class of track 3, tangent tracks curved less than 2 degrees, 8 ties, turnouts and curved track over 2 degrees, 10 degrees, 10 ties. 4 and 5, classes 4 and 5, 12 degrees track, tangent ties and tangent track curved less than 2 degrees, and 14 turnout curved tracks over 2 degrees. Guidance. Paragraph D is addressed to the curved track greater than 2 degrees will be determined the actual field measurement of the turnout, regardless of their location. Tangent and the curve shall have the same number of effective cross ties as required in curves greater than 2 degrees. When determining compliance with the minimum number of the non-defective cross ties per 39-foot segment, the inspector is reminded that the 30-foot segment may be taken anywhere along the track and need not to coincide with the joint location. If the portion of the rule does not require associated evidence of actual deviation, geometry, condition, or other defects. 109E. The cross ties counted and satisfied requirements set forth in table paragraph D of this section shall not be broken through, split, otherwise impaired. Extent of the cross tie will allow the ballast to work through. The will not hold spikes or rail fasteners so deteriorated the tie plate at the base of the rail can move laterally 1/2 inch relative to the cross ties. 4. The cut of the tie plate through more than 40% of the cross tie thickness. Guidance. When a cross tie exhibits more than one condition described in 4 of the criteria of evaluation, it may be considered non-effective in itself, although the determination may not always result in a defective condition that can be recorded under the defects of 213-109-01, 213-109-02, 213-109-03, and 213-109-04. If the track geometry measures fail to meet the requirements of subpart C, there is an efficient number of the effective cross ties. Both geometry and cross ties could be cited as defective. Geometry measurements exceed the allowable tolerance, but the determination cannot be made with the cross ties or cars at the appropriate site of the only defective geometry. The FRA inspectors may use the portable track loading fixture or the PTLF, describing statute 213-110 for the purposes of measuring, loading, and the gauging and determining the effective distribution of the cross tie. For Appendix E, the portable track loading fixture on geometry GRMS territory under statute 213-53. 109F in class 1 and 2 classes 1 and class 2 track shall have only one cross tie whose center is in 24 inches in each of the rail the joint location. Class 3 and 5 shall have one cross tie with a center line 18 inches of each rail location. Cross ties with the center lines are within 24 inches either side of each of the rail joint. The relatively position of the two ties described in the following figure. Each rail joint in Class 1 and Class 2 shall be supported with at least one cross tie specified in paragraph C and D of the section with a center line of 48 inches. Each rail in Class 3 and 5 shall have the supported least cross tie specified in paragraph C with a center line is 36 inches. 2 cross ties, one each side of the rail joint whose center line is less than 24 of the rail joint location shown is above. Guidance. A non-defective joint tie must be found with the prescribed distance of the center line of the joint measured with the rail end. The Class 3, 5 joint tie placement can be satisfied either by one type of tie configuration or a two tie configuration. For the clarity of measurement description, what a short piece of the railway, only the inches in length, increase the insert between the rail ends and incorporated with the joint bar assembly measured with the bar center line. Also see 213-121D rail joints. When non-symmetrical bars exist, the 5-hole block bars, 5-hole compromising bar, and measuring the design point where rail ends normally abut. 109G for the track constructed with the cross ties such as slab track, the track connected directly to the bridge structural components, track over the servicing track structure shall meet the requirements on paragraph B1112 and 3. For the section guidance, the paragraph address the track constructed with bout tie, cross ties and bridge timbers should be constructed in concrete slab in which the running rails are secured with a fixation to another structural member. Guidance in general, with respect to cross ties, general criticism have arisen from the overall inspector inspection cross ties conditions, stating that the decision were subjective to based on an inspector maintenance experience vary widely among the inspectors, which may never escape to the type of the criticism entirely, although there may be substantive reducing the inspector evaluated the condition solely in the way of the definition provided in each of the cross tie being evaluated individually by cross criteria, as well as all the provisions of track safety standards. The inspectors must use judgment, discretion, application of the cross tie standards. They should be used to describe conditions constitute risk of the safety operation of trains and should not be applied to the doubt and cases. Gauge rod is not an effective substitute of the proper cross-tie rail fastening system. The gauge rods can be subject to the sudden failure. They provide no vertical rail support, and they provide no resistance to rail rollover forces. However, the gauge rods may be installed when they are used in secondary means of support of maintaining gauge. Whether the gauge rods are used to observe obvious condition of the cross-tie fastening system in immediate vicinity and capability of maintaining adequate gauge, the inspector should consider cutting a cross-tie fastener defect. The certain cross-ties may not be able to hold the spikes rail fasteners in present condition. In the case, there may be also bring the cross-ties in compliance with either the plugging or the respiking, additional and rail holding, plate holding, spiking, or both. When conditions are close to the rail fastener, sound ties and tracks are fastened to the rail. Inspector should be referred to the guidance at 213, 127. Alright, 213.110 gauge resistant measurement system. A track owner may implement the implementation of the gauge restraint measurement system, or GRMS, supplemented with the use of portable track loading infrastructure, PTLF, determining the compliance with the cross tie fastener requirements specified in 213.109, 213.127. Provided that 1. The track owner notifies the appropriate FRA regional office at least 30 days prior to the designation of any line segment of the gauge-resistant measurement system technology will be implemented. 2. The track owner notifies the appropriate FRA regional office at least 10 days prior to the removal of any line segment of the gauge-resistant measurement system designation. The paragraph provides implementation for the gauge-resistant measurement system, supplementing the use of the portable track loading fixture to determine the compliance with the cross-tie rail fasteners requirements specified in Statute 213.109, 213.127. The track owners electing to implement the technology must provide the appropriate FRA regional office with notifications specifically identified with the lengths of line segments with the gauge-resistant measurement system will be used. The appropriate FRA office of the headquarters of the location of the FRA region of the gauge which the gauge-resistant measurement system designated in the section located. The notification must be provided with the FRA 30 days prior to the designation of any line segment in which subject requirements of the section, even though the notification requirements satisfied with the gauge-resistant measurement system vehicle is determined to meet the minimum design requirements of the actual triggering event which places the segment under the gauge-resistant measurement system in the initial track survey of the gauge-resistant measurement system. Track owners must also provide the FRA with at least 10 days prior notice of the removal of line segment of the age-resistant measurement system designation. The requirement provides the FRA with advance notice of the criteria change with the inspection cross-ties fasteners places some control over the random removal of the line segment of the gauge-resistant measurement system designation. 110B, the initial notification under paragraph A1 of this section shall include identification of line segment, timetable, designation, milepost, class of the track, and other identification criteria. And 2, the most recent record of the million gross ton of traffic per year over the identified segment guidance. The paragraph specifies the information track over the should include their notification of the FRA of the line segments designated with the gauge-resistant measurement system inspection. Information must include the minimum segment and table time, table designation, milepost, and the track class of the million gross ton of traffic per year, any other identification characteristic of the segment for reason for the safety of the gauge-resistant measurement system vehicle may have a split axle with a retracted position when the testing of the special track work such as turnaround to add grading the rail crossing diamond expansion joints the lift rails assembly when certain track which is not a part of the designation notification shall identify what and where these locations are and what designation distance approaching and leaving the locations are also excluded in the gauge resistant measurement system designation. Locations excluded in the gauge resistant measurement system designation will object to the requirements of 213.109 and 213.127. 110C, the track owner shall also provide the FRA sufficient technical data to establish compliance with minimum design requirements of the gauge-resistant measurement system vehicle, which specifies 1. The gauge resistance shall be measured between the heads of the rail. A. The interval not exceeding 16 inches. B. The approved vertical load not less than 10,000 pounds per rail, and under an applied lateral load provided with the lateral vertical load between 0.5 and 1.25. Loaded severity gravity then greater than 3,000 pounds, but less than 8,000 pounds. Guidance. The paragraph describes minimal design requirements of the gauge-resistant measurement system vehicles. Track owners must submit the FRA sufficient technical data so that the agency can establish whether or not the track owner complies with the design requirements. This paragraph that requires the gauge must be measured between the heads of the rail and intervals not exceeding 16 inches. The paragraph provides the designing flexibility, establishing a acceptable range of the lateral vertical load ratio. The resulting in lateral loads for variability, both of which satisfied various load configurations provided by the applied vertical load less than 10,000 pounds per rail. The rule provided the design flexibility, establishing the acceptable range of the various loading requirements. The range of the consideration absolute load configuration that falls outside of the prescribed ranges will not be considered acceptable. Some loading configurations may develop with a high lateral vertical load ratio. Their lubrication gauge faces and railhead and a railhead split axle may be required to reduce the efficiency friction to prevent the wheel climb. 110D, load severity defined as the formula. Load variability defined in lateral load applied with the fastener system pounds. Actual lateral load applied minus the coefficient of the friction between the rail and the tie, which is assigned with a nominal value of 0.4, and actual vertical load applied in pounds. This is measured. The values are converted with the projected loaded gauge of 24 as follows: projected loaded gauge times UTA times unlocked track gauge measurement of the gauge resistant measurement vehicle at point not less than 10 feet from the anti-lateral vertical load application times A exploitation factor used to convert the measured load gauge exerted and expected in load gauge under the 24,000 pound load and 33,000 pound vertical load times the loaded track gauge measurement of the gauge resistant measurement point at the point no more than 12 inches from the unilateral ground minus the unloaded track gauge measured by the gauge resistant measurement vehicle at not less than 10 feet and any lateral vertical point loaded application. For all track A in the above the conforming location, A is equal to 13.153, 0.1 10,000. Shit. I'm going to skip the equations. Guidance. Paragraphs D, E, and F prescribe the formula to be used in the calculation gauge widening the ratio of the projected loaded gauge of the 24, the accurate measurement of unloaded gauge, the gauge resistant measurement load gauge, the lateral load applied with the area critical importance because the measurement are used in the calculation of the projected load gauge 24 value, the values of the GW gauge widening ratio, values which constitute the direct measurement of the track strength, therefore avoid influencing of the adjacent load of the design requirement specifying the unloaded track gauge and measure be measured by the gauge resistant measurement system vehicle at the point of no less than 10 feet with the lateral vertical load application loaded with the track gauge measured within the gauge resistant measurement system vehicle shall be measured at the point no more than 12 inches from the lateral load of the application point. 110G, the gauge resistant measurement system vehicle shall be capable of producing output reports that provide a trace on consistent distance scale. The parameters shall be specified in paragraph 1 of this section. 110H, the gauge resistant measurement system shall be capable of providing exemption report containing the systematic listing of all exemptions, magnitude, location to all parameters specified in paragraph L of this section. 1110I, the exemption required by the section shall be provided with the appropriate personnel designated with the fully qualified under statute 213.7 part of the next inspection required under 213.233. Paragraphs G, H, and I require the gauge resistant measurement system vehicle be capable of producing strip chart of the parameters specified with the paragraph L of this section, as well as printed the exemption report listing the magnitude, location, all location of the parameters. The exemption report listing must be appropriate personnel designated fully qualified in Statute 213.7, but not prior to the next inspection under 213.233 of the training standard, track safety standards. Since the premises of the gauge resistant measurement system technology identify the areas of weak gauge resistant, either the immediate attention must be continually monitored until the next gauge resistant measurement system inspection. Exemption report listing must retain and available for the review by the 213.7 inspection personnel. The FRA inspector will obtain and have access to exemption report while conducting regular compliance inspection over the gauge resistant measurement system designated line segments. 110J. The track owner institutes the necessary procedures maintaining the integrity of the data collected by the gauge resistant measurement program or the portable track loading of I don't know. Or PTLF. At a minimum, the track owners shall one maintain the make available to the Federal Railroad Administration documented calibration procedures on gauge resistant measurement system vehicle, which one of the minimum specified daily verification procedures ensuring correlation between the measurement made on the ground and those recorded with the instrument will respect load and unload gauge parameters. 2. Maintain each PTLF for use to determine the compliance with requirements of the section, such as 4,000 pound reading accurate to within 5% of the reading. Guidance. The paragraph requires the track owner to institute procedures that will ensure the integrity of the data collected with the gauge resistant measurement system portable track load F. Track owners must maintain documented calibration procedure for the gauge resistant measurement system vehicle. Make available for the request of the FRA representative daily instrument verification procedure required to ensure the measurement and unloaded record instrument correctly actually failed the measurement. The track owner must also develop and implement necessary PTLF inspection maintenance procedures so that 4,000 pound reading is accurate within plus or minus 5%. 10K. The track owner shall provide the training with the gauge resistant measurement system technology to all personnel designated with the fully qualified under the Statute 213.7, whose territories are subject to the requirements of the section. The training program shall be made available to the Federal Railroad Administration upon request. At a minimum, the training program shall address the basic gauge resistant measurement system program procedures, interpretation and handling exemption reports generated by the gauge resistant measurement system, locating verifying defects in the field, remedial action requirements using calibration of the PTLF, recording requirements, guidance. This paragraph recognizes the need for the personnel designated with the fully qualified under Statute 213.7 territories or subjects to requirements of the section to receive the training with the implementation of the gauge resistant measurement systems technology. The tracker owner therefore is qualified to develop the formal gauge resistant measurement system training program, which must be available to the FRA upon request. For training effective with employees during another triggering event that must be satisfied prior to the segment being designated with the gauge resistant measurement system territory under this section. The training program must provide the detailed instructions for specific areas and identify with particular training must address the gauge resistant measurement system operational procedure interpretation and handling exemption reports on how to locate and verify the gauge resistant measurement program system defects and field remedial action requirements to be initiated within the defects and verified how to use the calibration of the PLTF record keeping requirements associated with the implementation of the gauge resistant measurement technology. Alright, the requirement of the gauge resistant measurement training applies to the fully qualified 213.7 person under the paragraphs A and B who going to subject the requirements of the section. It says not to say the qualified 213.7 person needs the training of a welder, foreman, production gang foreman. It's also necessary where all fully qualified statute 213.7 personnel who receive gauge resistant measurement training to be issued PTLFs. However, the circumstances arise with the need for the PTLF that should access one and be trained in how to use interpret the results. The track owner must take into consideration any of the relief personnel, qualified personnel trained for the non-gauge resistant measurement system territory into the gauge resistant measurement system territory, who will be subject to the gauge resistant measurement system requirements. These personnel provided with sufficient instruction that enable them to demonstrate the track owner that they know and understand the requirements of this section. All right. This is a table. And I'm going to cut it right there after the table. So, page 137.